So Games Workshop seems to be unusually reticent to talk about Primaris Space Marines, and it seems that they've confirmed the first days that people will get their hands on 10th edition Warhammer 40k. Let's talk about the news and what it could mean going forward over the next few months. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're keeping up with the 10th edition news and rumours. I thought we'd just talk about another couple of interesting things from yesterday's previews, both of which kind of small but kind of interesting at the same time, I think. First up, let's talk about the 10th edition launch confirmation and what it means for the actual game shipping out to most people, and then talk about the way that they're branding their new shiny Space Marines for 10th edition, where there's very little mention of the word Primaris in sight, even on our shiny new lieutenant here. First up though, alongside their two other teasers the other day, Games Workshop did basically tell us when the first people will be able to play 10th edition's launch, and by doing this I think we can reasonably infer really quite a lot. It does appear that 10th edition Warhammer 40k might well just be a rerun of the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness and the way that that came out at Warhammer Fest last year. Perhaps the most telling thing that they've said is that they say that the first place that you can play 10th edition Warhammer 40k is at Warhammer Fest. That's their 3-day event that starts on the 29th of April and goes on the next couple of days after that. Warhammer Fest this year is being run in Manchester in the UK. It starts on the 29th of April, and at least according to their article the other day, it looks like most of the tickets have already sold out for the first day, but there's still a couple left for the Sunday and the Monday after that. I'd guess that perhaps the big reveal announcements might be on the first day, though I guess we don't 100% know that yet. Seems very likely that it will be Saturday to me. Confirming that this is the first place that you can play 10th edition Warhammer 40k though does really confirm really quite a lot of things from the way that Games Workshop has done these sort of launches in the past. Basically, to play 10th edition you'll need some models to do so. It isn't just going to be a rules thing, they'll absolutely have a new box set of models to play with, so it seems kind of likely that the launch box reveal for 10th 40k might well be at this Manchester event. Based on what happened last time with the Indomitus box and everything, it seems like in the next few weeks we're likely to get some previews towards the launch box, basically individual units and models being shown off, like the Lieutenant that we had yesterday. But like Indomitus, I'd expect them to show off maybe around about half to 60% of the contents, and then have the rest of it saved up for a big reveal bonanza when they actually show off the launch box alongside the new book and everything. My guess is that until then, all the models that we see previewed will probably wind up to be in the launch box, and then they might start showing off other things after that. Then, in terms of predicting the time frame for 10th edition Warhammer 40k, I feel like it's really quite easy to go by the Horus Heresy release that they've had going on. This one would certainly fit the same sort of time frame for a new edition of a game, and looks like it could just be a carbon copy of what they do with 10th. For that one, for their Age of Darkness launch box, they officially revealed it on the 7th of May at Warhammer Fest 2022. Then there was a 3-week delay after that, where it had been revealed, but they hadn't actually put it up for pre-order. And then around the 29th of May, it went up for pre-order and lasted for 3 weeks, only then eventually shipping the box at around about the 19th of June. So you'd only really consider that the actual launch of the game for most people at around about mid to late June. Seeing as that date had already been kind of rumoured previously, somewhere around June to July for 10th edition 40k, seems like it's even more evidence that that's going to be quite likely. Obviously we could take or lose a week or two here or there, but it feels unlikely that it'd be too far different to this. Kind of helpful to know where we're going with this anyway. First up, a bunch of previews building up to the launch box, then the full reveal of the launch box, and then maybe focus a bit more on rules and other supporting things after we've actually had the main reveal, to build up some final hype for 10th edition. Should be fun, I'm sure Games Workshop will be keeping the news flowing over this time. Otherwise, the second thing that I just wanted to mention today was that Games Workshop still seem to be going down the route of kind of distancing themselves from putting Primaris on everything these days. And while it's still early days yet, it could be a bit more evidence that they're starting to treat Space Marines as just one thing, rather than kind of two separate sub-ranges. As I talked about in the video a week or so back, the new Terminators kind of started blurring the line a bit. Since 8th edition and the advent of Primaris, we've had very few miniatures that could either count as Primaris and Firstborn, but Games Workshop confirms that the new upscaled Terminators could equally be either, and there isn't going to be a rules differentiation. Since then we've not heard absolutely tons of new Space Marines news, but it does seem that in the further 10th previews there hasn't been quite as much mention of the word Primaris. It wasn't used on the new datasheet for the Intercessors, though I guess it wouldn't necessarily be. I don't think it is in the Codex at the moment. Though I feel like perhaps more tellingly it wasn't mentioned alongside the recently announced Phobos lieutenants. In all the branding and everything, he was very much just a lieutenant in Phobos armour, as opposed to a Primaris one. If you take a look at a few of the promotional shots for their new lieutenant versus a couple of ones from the past, our new Tyrannic War Veteran guy on the left is just called Lieutenant in Phobos armor, and then if we go back to last edition for the poster child of Indomitus, that was just called a Primaris Lieutenant. They didn't call him a Blade Guard Lieutenant or anything like that. And then prior to that, when we had things like the Reaver Lieutenant came out, they initially branded him as a Space Marine Primaris Lieutenant in Phobos armor, basically the same as our current guy, but they've left out the word Primaris. I still say it's probably early stages at this point, but it's kind of notable by its absence when they talk about new Space Marine releases, and they don't plaster the word Primaris over most of it. It does tend to come up quite a lot in their promo material, but certainly taken in the context of the new Terminators, it could also start to represent the start of the reunification of the Space Marine range, having everything just be Space Marines, and they just happen to have different aesthetics and maybe a bit of different lore in them, as opposed to making a really big deal as to the ones that are Primaris and the ones that are Firstborn. I did go into that a bit more detail in the video on the Terminators, but it will be pretty helpful for rules purposes. You'd be able to get different units in transports and things, and it would mean that you wouldn't have weird disparities with stratagem access as well, such as the Primaris getting transhuman physiology, and that being a major advantage. And model-wise, it could maybe open a lot more gates again. If we're seeing new and reimagined Terminators, but not necessarily redesigned, we might also get other iconic Space Marine units come to the fore in a similar sort of way. They could potentially release something like a new, slightly bigger and polished Land Raider if they wanted. Not necessarily saying that it definitely needs it or anything, but the option would be there. And if they wanted, they could start to do a few more replacement style units like the Terminators are, as opposed to just releasing a Primaris near equivalent for many units. Say for example, they could potentially redo, say, something like the Space Marine Devastator Squad, as opposed to having to release something kind of nearby like the Desolation Squad. Kind of interesting though in any case. Seems like this could just be another little hint that Games Workshop might well be making Space Marines into Space Marines, as opposed to into Primaris and Firstborn, and really trying to sell you on the difference. In any case, let me know what you think. Do you reckon that the preview for the launch box will indeed be at Warhammer Fest, or it could be a bit earlier or later? I guess knowing Games Workshop, there's always the opportunity for that to leak out early, and them to have to follow it up with a post. And what do you make of the Primaris versus Firstborn thing? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular 40k updates coming. I'm sure I'll be posting really quite a lot as 10th edition unfolds. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel and you'd like to help support the creation of them, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you're interested in helping support. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.